is ZeBirdBrain, and today we are talking about schools. Yeah, because sometimes I make tutorials and sometimes I don't. This is not so much tutorials, but I'm gonna start making more of these videos where we just talk about topics. Because learning how to use Harmony in Storyboard Pro is one thing, learning how to be and exist in this big industry of ours is another. And today's subject will be school or no school. And let me clarify because this is a bit wide. But when I say school or no school, I mean like the physical, traditional schooling system. So I've been hearing more and more people literally claim that the traditional form of schooling is awful and should not exist, and like you don't need to go to school to succeed, which to a certain extent it's true. You don't necessarily need to attend an animation school to succeed. And by the way, I'll say school, but what I mean is animation school. Like the regular schooling system is another big thing that I don't want to tackle into because it's so different everywhere in the world, so I'm not going to start by that. Animation schools are usually a bit more stable in the way that they operate and stuff, so that's what I'm going to focus on. But yeah, I've been hearing so many people literally like diss out their schooling system, being like it's awful, don't attend it, and I think that spreading that is actually detrimental. Because while it's not, and not one system is perfect, but traditional schooling system has a lot of good things to offer, and I think that disregarding it is just not a good behavior to have, especially if you are an artist that benefited from a traditional school and you go around on Twitter telling other people that, oh, you don't need to go to school to succeed, you don't need to attend an animation school to have quality learning, and I'm like, you went there. So you might look back and hate everything you had about school, but it is a fact that a lot of us went to school and, you know, learned a good deal from it. So my video today will not be to perpetrate that going to traditional school is like the only thing that will get you out there. It's factually not. But what I'm gonna try to do is take all the good points that going to school has to offer and kind of translate them into, if you cannot attend a physical school, what do you do? Also, I will define that when I'm talking about traditional school, it's not for traditional animation, it's more like a regular schooling system where you go there or like you attend, because it can be on site or it can also be online. Like you attend lessons that are given by a teacher to a class. When I say the no school system is more like if you don't have any learning platform. So when I say traditional school, this might include any physical school you have in your country, any online platforms such as Animation Mentor or Animation Academy. Like there's so many that you can check out, and these are usually instructor-led training. This is what I include usually into the traditional school system. When I say no school, what I mean is somebody that has nothing. Like they don't have access to a physical school, they don't have access to online schooling such as Animation Mentor or like the 2 Boom classes or whatever. They don't have anything of the likes, so they're really more on their own. So that's what I define as no school. And also I will not be using the terms self-taught because this is something that personally I don't like. Because it's such a wide term and it's used often to bring down other people, being like, oh, I mean, I'm not as great as that person, but I'm self-taught. It's like, no, like it's not something I would include in a Twitter bio, being like, oh, self-taught animator. Is like, no, like you're an animator, self-taught or school-taught. Like it doesn't matter, because one might say that they're self-taught, but maybe they learned by themselves, but from a mentor that taught them. Maybe they read a book that was written by someone who had classes. So like, unless you're sitting in a cave teaching yourself animation with absolutely no output from the exterior, I think self-taught is just a weird term to use, so I will not be using that. So I'm gonna start by just laying down what are the good points of going to school. So here are the things that a traditional school system is going to give their students. You have a sense of community, because when you attend the program, you're going to be with other people you would have otherwise never met. So you're going to be with people that might or might not share your own values. You're going to learn to deal with lots of different people. Might these be your teachers, your students, or just the people around the school and like the cafeteria and whatnot. So you're going to experience and learn from being around many different people. This will come with their ups and downs and their load of problems and good things, but being a part of something like a community of people is really important and a really big part of going to school. Because animation school is more than sitting at a desk and learning about animation. That's what it sounds like, but when you look back from the outside, it's much more. So the community is going to help you feel like you're part of something. It's really easy for students to motivate each other, because of course if you take it in a bad way and you go there and your sole motivation is to be better than everyone else, you might not have a good time. But when I say motivation and drive and momentum, is that if somebody comes and be like, oh, I learned this from this cool website, you can be like, oh, that's a very cool thing. Or I'm trying to do this, but it doesn't quite work. Can anybody help me? And when you help someone, you feel great. And then if you're the one asking for help and somebody helps you, then you also feel great. So it's a very important part of school that is often overlooked, the community sense of it. And even if you're a super quiet, more reserved student that maybe take less part into the community, and that's totally all right, you are still surrounded by people who should have your best interests at heart and can help you. The other good point of a community is that you have a sense of accountability because everybody's in the same boat together. And even if you're a more quiet student that is not gonna communicate as extravagantly as other people with the rest of the community, there's still this sense of accountability that you are in this together. So you have similar lessons, similar homeworks, and if you're struggling, you can also see people struggling. And when you are feeling great about a project, maybe other people also feel great about it. So it's easy to communicate and just make connections. Which leads me to another very important point. The connections that you make in this community. Another big part of school is the networking. It might not look like it, but the people you're sitting into in your class are going to be your colleagues when you graduate. This is one of the best lessons that my school taught me. Upon arriving on our first day of school, we were sitting in a class, and our teacher told us, okay, welcome to this class, welcome to this school. I would like you to take a moment and look around you at all the faces you have in the class. And we looked at each other and stuff. And she said, these will be your fellow classmates, teammates, and colleagues for the next 3 years of animation school. But they will also be your colleagues in the industry when you guys graduate. So now is the time to build bridges, to build friendship, and help each other. Now is not the time to be in a competition with the others and try to break them or cause drama and all that. Because the animation industry is a big teamwork industry, and we're not there to bring each other down. We're there to bring each other up so that the animation industry and all we make can be better. So she was absolutely right, because even 10 years later, I still work with the same people I went to school with. So the networking is more than going to an event and having a few cocktails with people and trying to get a job. Networking is all the small little connections you make with people. Maybe I'm going to school, and in my background drawing class, I do a nice art of a nice castle or something. Maybe 10 years later, one of my classmate will have a production being like, oh, I remember that project from years ago, maybe I can ask that person. So it's a big network, and you're not there to fake and be friends with everyone. That's not the point. It's just that these people are going to be the people that you're going to work with later. So it has a great sense of family and a great sense of visibility as well, because it is a fact, not everybody has the same skills when they graduate. Some people are maybe more experienced, or they have a facility in some points. They're gonna graduate and be the superstar of your cohort, and they're gonna be the first one to find a job. And that's just true. When I graduated, I was not the best student of my class, but some of my friends were, and they got a job. And then when their studio needed to have more people, they asked their employees, who would you bring in? And they're like, oh, well, I have this friend who's very nice, very helpful. We could bring her in. And that's how I got my first job. So the network is more than faking to be friends with everyone. It's just the small connections you make with everybody in your class. And this is something that animation school in the traditional form brings you. Another thing it's going to bring you is what I call the bonus skills, all the other skills. Because working in animation and working in life in general is more than pushing a pencil. It's working as a team in a studio, is meeting certain deadlines and stuff. The school is going to teach you about work etiquette, how do you present yourself? How do you attend an interview? How do you act around a studio? Some things we don't think about when we're on our own in our basement trying to learn, but there's a whole thing that goes there. In school, you're going to learn to do teamwork because you're going to be paired with people you would have never wanted to work. You can sit in the class being like, I hate that person. Well, maybe you're gonna have to work with them. And that's gonna be the truth in a studio. You might and you will probably not love everyone. But at the end of the day, the school is gonna teach you to compromise, to set aside maybe differences and work together with someone to meet a deadline, to meet a goal. Sometimes the compromise will also be to, if you have 3 classes at the same time, you're gonna have to learn to split your time into 3 classes. Because you cannot just spend 6 months on the same illustration and then hand it out, because in the end, in the industry, you will need to meet deadlines, and maybe you're gonna have 3 things at the same time, and you will have to learn to compromise, because you will not be, and you should not strive to be able to hand out 3 perfect projects. You will learn to compromise and cut corners and all that, which is what I classify as other skills. So learning to work as a team, learning to meet deadlines, and to compromise. Another amazing point of school will be that schools have physical locations usually. They offer you labs, they offer you libraries, books, or materials that you might not have at home. And for non-physical schools, they're going to usually provide you with softwares. They're going to provide you with online materials, maybe documents and books that you can use to learn and exercises. So it is a fact that if you attend a animation program, you will get benefits from materials, may it be online or on site. And last but not least, a school usually, or a program, is going to give you a paper at the end, like a diploma. And that is also something I'm a bit annoyed to hear when I hear having a diploma doesn't change anything. Because as much as I would love to believe it and live in a wonderful world where having a diploma doesn't mean anything, it's not true. If people have two resumes side by side, maybe like the art is pretty like similar and all that, like they might go for someone who has a paper and not just a diploma from any greatly renowned physical school. That's not what I mean. It's having a paper, like having something that says you accomplished any kind of program, may it be a school, online learning, or like a weekend workshop or something. It's just important to have these achievements. And where I want to be clear is that it's not the name of the school that is on the diploma that matters. What matters is having a, I'm just losing my words over this, having a, it's like an assessment that you did something. No matter what the school is, it just indicates to the employer that you are not just an artist that can do animation. It's also that you probably know how to work as a team, how to work deadlines, all the little soft skills I was talking about, like the other skills. These are all things that having completed a program somewhere indicates to an employer. Yeah, because I've worked in studios for some years and you could often see when people learned on their own, sometimes they would be less prone to teamwork, or maybe know a little bit less about what the other steps of the pipelines are. Because if you just learn how to animate for 5 years in your basement, you might not know how backgrounds are handled in your scene or how compositing is done. That's also usually something that more a traditional school system is going to teach you, is all the soft or other skills around what you focus on. If it's animation, in the school you might have some sensibility to learn a bit about how compositing is done, how backgrounds are handled, how character design is made, so that they give you a broader overview of the industry and the pipelines and all that. So this is usually the positive points of going to school. And the last positive point I have to say is the quality of the teaching, but this is a very, very so-so point, because there are factually schools that are going to try to scam you. Not every physical or traditional school system is great, and this is a fact and something you have to be careful when choosing your education method. So I'm going to cover that later too. So usually in schools, you would have quality teaching because the teachers that are going to teach you have experience and stories to tell, and it comes from a place of knowledge. But it is true that some schools are going to hire just anyone to teach as long as you pay to enter, and this is a sad truth. Not every school has their best intention at hand, and that is just something you have to be careful about. But I do have something here that you can look at, because schools have good points, like I said, but traditional schools can also have very, very bad points, being that they can be very expensive. They can also be far away. Like, not every location has a physical or traditional school to attend to, and most importantly, they can be bad. There are a lot of bad schools out there, so that's something you have to be careful about. So usually when choosing a school, these are my advice. So like how to choose a school, you have to look at the price versus the quality of the teaching, because you might end up paying a lot of money for a teaching that is not as high quality as the price intends. And how to find out the price versus quality, you can find out with the following points that I was about to go for. So the biggest thing I look at when I look at a school is the kind of the input-output ratio, because it's easy to look at a school and say like, oh, this school is amazing, look at all the beautiful short films that come out of it. Because sometimes schools are going to only show you the best of the best short film that comes out of it. They're not going to show you all the students that were maybe less amazing. They're not going to show you those. They're going to like toss it aside. And sometimes schools will look amazing, but it's also because they have a very hard entry exam. So yes, the output that they produce is phenomenal. They have amazing looking films. So I'm thinking of schools like Les Gobelins, like Call Arts, or the Animation Workshop, which are not bad school in any way. I'm not dissing on them. But the truth is, they have a very hard exam and entry criteria. Not just anyone can attend these schools. So it goes without saying that the output of these schools will be phenomenal if the people that get in are already skilled before they attend the school. And oftentimes these schools are very, very expensive, and when you go there, you're going to benefit a lot from the network, from the different teachers that are there, but you might not have as much as a learning path than other maybe less famous school might offer. So that's what I mean by input versus output, because you might have schools that have a bit less of renown. Like the animation school that I went to is not famous in any shape or form, but the reason why I chose it and why I really thrived in it is because the people that enter this school, they're not phenomenal artists. We enter this school and Honestly, most of our art is really cringy, but the output ratio is really great because they take people that has no knowledge, they give the knowledge, and then they produce movies that are pretty darn good. But these people come out of like nowhere. They're not amazing, they're not phenomenal. And yes, some school will also have an entry exam. It's just gonna be less of a big deal than like bigger school. Don't look at just the output of a school. Try to look at what goes in the school. If you're looking for school, like maybe ask graduates that are there, like, oh, how was the learning? Like, how did you come in and out of the school? And it's gonna be very, very helpful into finding out if the school is great or not. Because I had friends that attended some animation schools that they thought were great, and then in the end, not because they were bad students or because it was awful, it's just that they might say like, the learning was not as I thought it would be. And because there's many types of learning, so it's important for you to just discuss with people to know how the school is like. Very often schools are going to offer their curriculum online, so you can check out what the classes will be, because there's nothing more sad than signing up for an animation school and finding out that you're not going to animate before third year, because it's actually more of a, when you learn like history of animation, when you learn how to experiment with different art forms, and you're not actively doing like industry animation, and that's what you would have wanted to learn. So and I'm all saying these stories from like tales that I've been told by other peers in the industry, so it could very happen, and if it happens to you, it's normal. Sometimes we join things that we are not very comfortable with. You should not be afraid to drop out of a school you are not feeling well about. Very important. Visit on-site. If it's a on-site school, yeah, I really recommend visiting on-site just to know if you like the vibe. Of course, if it's more of a online schooling, you can't really visit an online school, but you can at least try to ask around if you can maybe ghost on a lesson or something and listen in the background. And what is very important is look for recognition. Like I say, I'm not saying recognition to like visit a famous school or something, but more like, do companies in your area vouch for the school? Because sometimes you're gonna have amazing public school that are very inexpensive, and companies know that these schools exist and they really like them, and they have like partnership together to like hire graduates and all that. And sometimes you will have private schools that are very expensive, and companies don't even know anything about these schools. So what I mean by that is, don't let the price tag influence you. You might have very expensive schools that are total bullshit. You might have free schools that are amazing, and the other way around, right? So that's why there's so much things that goes into finding a school. And yeah, so if you have the luxury of having a physical school near you that you can attend that is not super expensive, I do recommend going for it, even though a lot of people say that schools are awful. My video is not there to tell you to not study by yourself and attend a physical or like traditional school, for sure. I just thought I would make that video because I know that people in my country have amazing, not very expensive school near them, and just because some famous animator that they follow said that school was bullshit, they're like, oh, I don't want to go to school, I want to be a cool kid and teach myself. I'm like, you might be missing out on something amazing. So traditional school system can be great depending on what you make out of it, but I made this video just to inform you of the positiveness that can come out of a traditional school system. So what I'm gonna do for the next video is take all the good points we identified with the traditional school system or online schooling system, and we're gonna try to find out how we can adapt this to somebody who's learning on their own without access to schools or online schooling. Maybe they don't have the budget, maybe they don't have the learning preference to go like that, because not everybody will thrive in a physical or traditional school system. Some people do better more on their own, at their own pace, but there are, like I said, factually great points about a physical or traditional school that are very great, and in the next video we're gonna learn how to adapt this to yourself if you don't want or can't attend a classic school. Alright, thank you for listening!